We're with the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program at the OSU Library. Today is Friday, July 1st, 2011, and we're in Hugo, Oklahoma, interviewing B.K. Silverlake. Thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Well, we'd like to begin by having you tell us the year you were born, the city you were born in, and then give us a little background on your parents.
All right. I was born in Aura, Indiana, little bitty dinky town, on August 7th, 1946, in my mother and father's home on the kitchen table. That's what I was told. My mother was Emma Duke, and my father was Raymond Duke. My mother had left the circus 2 weeks before I was born, had me, and went back out on the circus 2 weeks after I was born. I have two brothers. They're actually my half-brothers, but I've never, ever distinguished that other than in things like this. And my mother was married to a man by the name of Bert Briggs prior to my father. And he was quite a bit older than my mother. And they had the two boys, Leonard Lee Briggs and Bertel Lee Briggs Jr. And then Bert Briggs died, and then she married my father. And my oldest brother, Leonard, was 17 years older than myself, and Lee, the next one, was 10 years older, and he's still alive. And we were all raised on the circus. Bert Briggs was one of the more famous animal trainers of horses, dogs, and monkeys in his time, which I'm presuming would be around 1920s. He is in Baraboo Museum. They have him listed there in the history books somehow. I read some of it once. I was looking it up. And my dad, well, my mother wasn't in the circus business, but somehow, I don't even remember what she said, but met Bert and married him. And then, of course, she started training dogs, and she worked the horses. She did dressage and did a few aerial acts. I'm not just sure what. I know she did swing and ladder. And then when Bert died and she married my dad, who was Raymond Duke, he ran away from home. He was a town kid too. But he ran away from home when he was 17 and joined Ringling Brothers Circus. And he started out as a roustabout, and then he got involved with the elephants. And right now I'm not going to think. Sport Matthews, I didn't think I was going to remember his name, was one of the big elephant trainers back then. And I guess he took a liking to my dad, and my dad did good with the elephants, so my dad worked the elephants. Not worked him, but he was a groom, I guess, more so. I don't know if he ever worked in the ring with them or not. Well, he might have, because he was good with elephants. I don't know. I hate this part, and I'm so thankful for you gals, because there's things like that I wish I knew, you know. But anyway, and then when he left there, he became a clown, and I may as well bring the Silverlake family in about that time. Then they all met somehow way back there, but I know my mother and Bert knew the Silverlake family, and my dad knew the Silverlake family. I see, we're really intertwined. It just don't matter. And then, anyway, as time went on, the Silverlake family lived in southern Indiana in a little bitty town called Medora. I was born in Aura, and they were born in Medora. So what would happen is Brownie Silverlake would book indoor dates in the winter in the schools or in buildings, and we would travel to southern Indiana and work all those dates for the circus. Then my dad would book schools and indoor dates in northern Indiana, and then they would come to northern Indiana and we would do indoor dates up there. And the Silverlake family is a pretty large family. 7 boys and 1 girl. Marcus, Franklin, Myrna, Melvin, Jimmy, and Joe. No, only 6 of them. They just seem like more. Anyway, we all grew up together. And that was the Brownie Silverlake and Josephine Silverlake family. Prior to that, Brownie Silverlake, who is actually, his real name is Melvin, Sr. His father was Archie Timberlake, Silverlake. See, I get it filed up. Anyway, Archie Silverlake. Oh boy, I can't remember his dad's name right now. Archie's dad's name. But anyway, they started out in vaudeville way, way, way back. And, but for my era that I know and knew was the Brownie Silverlake family, and Josephine was his wife. Well, and then, they'll never get this straight. Then, all right, Josephine's father was Charles Fisher, and he was a veterinarian. And back when, like, the Depression was on and people couldn't pay him, they would give him animals like pigs or ponies or ducks or chickens or whatever they had for payment for taking care of maybe their cow or something. And, oh Lord, what's Grandmammy's name? Oh my gosh. It's always been Grandmammy. Why can't I think? I know her name. Oh, it'll come to me. Oh my Lord, that's awful. Anyway, they started training the animals. And they had, then their children was Josephine, Sarah, which we called Aunt Tootsie, and Arthur were their 3 children. And so they would then work the animals and did contortion and just learned little tricks and things. And so they did like a little medicine type show, I guess, type deal. And they worked into circus. And then he took out Fisher Brothers Circus back in the late 20s, I believe, that started. And then Josephine and Brownie met and they got married, and then that's when their children was Marcus, Franklin, Myrna, Melvin, Jimmy, and Joe. And that's where we then when I know that we did circuses together, and then in the summertime sometimes we'd be on the same circus, for a season. They did a lot of fair dates, though, the Silverlakes did in between. Would do, back then they'd have like free acts on the fairs, and they would do a lot of them. Or they'd be in a circus, or it was like us in the wintertime, we'd work together. So we all just kind of grew up together, knew each other forever and ever and ever. And finally, 1967, my dad was bill posting for King Brothers Circus, and he needed a helper. I think one of the fellas had to go home or something that was helping, And he said, well, I'll just call Melvin and have Melvin come up here. And I'm like, no, please don't do that. And he did, and Melvin came to work and bill post. And the first night he got there, I ain't saying where he had to go to, but I had to go with him. Yeah, I will. He was finding a bootlegger because he drank. And we got back and we just sat in there. It was in Bowling Green, Kentucky, at the state park there. And we're just sitting there BSing, talking. He says, you know, he said, I think we ought to get married. And I just laughed at him. And I mean, really laughed. He kept it up. No, I'm serious, he'd say. No, and he'll tell you a different story, though. I'm serious. We ought to get married. And I'm like, and laugh. I was laughing so hard tears was rolling down my eyes. Well, he kept it up for 3 weeks. And every time he'd mention it, I'd laugh. And finally I thought, let's see, he's serious. Well, you know, we've always got along. All right, okay, I'll marry you. And that's how we got married. And to write in that storyline, I got to tell you, he was in the Air Force for 4 years. And I wrote to him diligently in the Air Force. I even made him angel food cakes, and we sent them. And I sent him a record one time that was the most popular record at that time in the United States, and he was stationed in France or Germany, I don't remember. And so I wrote and told him I was going to get that record and send it, and it was the most popular town or song in the country at the time. And so he, of course, had told all his buddies, and they was all excited they're going to get this record, right? So I sent it, and it was the most popular. And it was, let's see, now I don't remember the title exactly, but it was I dreamed I was in cowboy heaven. I died and went to cow. Anyway, it was horrible. He was so mad he was ready to shoot me. But so the reason I'm telling you this story about us, how we got married, and that I wrote to him in the Air Force. Well, on our first wedding anniversary, my mother threw a party for us to have. And something came up about me always loving him. And I said, no, I haven't. I ain't never been in love with him forever. Oh, yes. And then Melvin, of course, got into, yes, you have. You've always loved me. And I'd say, no, I don't think so. And he said, I can prove it. I said, oh, yeah. He went out in the shed, brought in, I can't remember what they used to keep, but a big old tin with the lid on it, good size, and opened it up, and there were all the letters that I had wrote to him in the Air Force. He had kept them all. He said, in every one of those letters, you've told me I loved you. I loved him. I said, I did not. I know no such thing. There's no way that I said anything like I wrote him. I know what I said. I never, ever told you I loved you in any one of those. He said, I don't care, pick any of them. And boy, did I, and boy, did I. Had no clue. Anyway, we were married for, I always say, 26 years. And then we got divorced. And we are still the best of friends. But through the course of the time, his mother and father bought a circus called Clark and Walter's Circus. And I went and joined them on the circus, left my dad bill posting, and went with them because Melvin had left and went. And well, his little brother come up. Oh, I know what it was. Melvin hurt his leg. He messed up his knee. So Joe came up, his youngest brother, to fill in for him. And while Melvin was home, Clark and Walter's Circus actually showed Medora. And Herb Walters, who owned it at that time, and from the beginning, as far as I know, owned it, said, boy, I'd sell this thing in a heartbeat. And they got talking and they bought it. And so then Joe left. And then Melvin kept calling. And you have to remember, back then we didn't have cell phones. We had to go to the pay phones and figure out ways to call and stuff. But well, you need to be here. You could help out. You know a lot about all this stuff. And so anyway, I left and went. And then that fall is when we got married in 1967. But prior to that, see, I'm getting ahead of myself. I haven't even grown up yet, really. I was just born.
We're going to jump back.
Okay.
So you're a little girl. What circus are your parents with? I know they're kind of jumping around.
Right. The ones I can remember, and I should have brought that. I've got some wrote down. When I was really, really little, I remember... Yep, and there it goes, right out the window. Yeah. Boy, that's awful. It was just there. It really was.
That's all right.
No, I hate when I do this.
Well, they were with several circuses while
Yeah,
you were
small
growing
circus.
up.
Oh, yes.
And
Yeah.
would they always have the same type of jobs?
No,
or do different things?
you always do different things usually. Well, my dad would clown, but after he did that, he mostly started becoming, he'd bill posted some, but then he started becoming a booking agent. And him and another gentleman by the name of Gene Christian were the two best, bar none, booking agents in this country for a small type circus. Nobody could beat them. They just couldn't figure out what they did, but they were good at it, just terrific at it. So a lot of the times, either Daddy, when we was on a circus, Daddy would be, well, let me back that up. Let's say he's bill posting. Well, my mother would bill post too. Well, I walked right with her every step of the way. Then if he was booking, Mother and I would have to sit in the car, and he'd have to go in to see a sponsor to talk to him and explain. Maybe he'd be in there for 5 seconds. Maybe he'd be in there for a half an hour. So we just kind of, there we were in the car. I always hated it, the booking part, just sitting there waiting for him when I was little, you know. But then got to a point where I suppose that would have been Adams Brothers, somewhere in that vicinity. I would have been about 8 or 9 maybe, and he started to work for a man named Bill Griffith, who owned a newspaper in Appleton, Wisconsin, and took a circus out. He liked the circus, and so he did, with a partner, Little Bob Stevens, who was already a circus guy, and so Daddy would go booking, and Mother and I would be on the show. We'd stay on the show, and she'd clown or whatever, and I would, whatever, as a kid, just fill in here, there, whatever. On the one circus, Leonard Brothers, that's the little one, back when I was about 7 years old, I had to play the records and walk in spec so I could eat in the cookhouse. I didn't perform at that time when I was just little, but I had to do that to be able to. But I had to know the records, had to put them on, take them off, and for the timing, and was there for both shows every day. And then when my dad started to work for Bill Griffith with the Adams Brothers, and then it was Adams and Sells Brothers, and then it became Burnham Brothers, which was the nicest of the circuses he had. He just kind of built it, you know, up. I was more teenage type, 12, 13, all the times, you know, like from about 9 I was probably when Daddy started working for him. And then I would have odd jobs. Bill was always putting me to work somewhere as I grew up. And like back then we didn't have big semi-concession trailers. We had a tent, little tents. And it was called a number 1 stand, number 2 stand, number 3. It was like popcorn, cotton candy, and then, cotton candy in one, popcorn in another one, and then cold drinks, and then maybe sometimes they'd have a snow cone, maybe number 4 stand, but that's how they were deemed. So Bill would say, okay, you're going to run the cotton candy stand. So I'd get it all lined out, get it going smooth, how I could handle it and get it up, get it down, do the job, blah, blah, blah. Well, then he'd pull me off of that job. Well, I need you to shovel elephant shit, or shit shoveler left, so BK gets to shovel elephant shit. And I'm like, oh my God. So then, you need to sell tickets. You need to, after I got older, you know, I want you here to help me check up with the sponsor. And I'd get every one of these jobs just down pat, just working good. You know, I'd think, man, I got it smooth, I got my routine, and he'd pull me off and have me do something else. One time, after I was a teenager, had my driver's license, I had to go ahead of the show, and he had heralds. And he had made arrangements with the sponsors, and they would get young kids, 8 of them, in my car, and I would drop 4 here at this block, and they would do the circle of the block. One would go one way, and then I'd drive up and 4 more, and they'd hand out these, take them to the houses, to the doors, put them on the doorknob or whatever, and then I'd circle back, pick those up, and then go, and then we just kept doing that. Did that for a while, and then it was, well, I need you to go bill posting. Well, then I'd have to go bill post. Of course, I knew how to do that, and but when I was in high school, because I stayed home, I went to school. Mother and Daddy would leave, and I would stay with my great aunt and uncle, who were more like my grandparents. But the one year, I decided, well, I'm going to learn how to do trapeze. So I hung a trapeze rig, and my mother helped me. We hung it between 2 trees in the yard. Northern Indiana, freezing cold. So every night from school, I'd go home, hang it up, practice, take it down, and go into the house. But I did learn how to kind of do trapeze. So I also wanted to be a beautician, and my aunt and uncle were going to pay for me to go to Vogue College, and I was just ecstatic about doing that. And that was my senior year in high school, because my father come home in that winter. He said, I really wish you'd go on the show just this first season after school anyway. And like me, well, I ought to do something my father wants me to do. So I gave up going to beauty college, and I went on the circus and did a lousy trapeze act. Well, I did. I'm not lying. It was. And then there was a couple of people on the show, and they helped me, and I got a little better. And the only thing I was ever proud of on my trapeze, because it was just a mediocre single trapeze act, I loved to do it, but I didn't have many great tricks. I had one what they call a bird's nest that you do up in the ropes, and then I would come down and drop to my knee, but it would look like I was falling. And I always liked to do that, because prior to that I did the little tricks, and I could hear the audience of people saying, oh, I could do that, you know, and I'm like, yeah, you could. And I said, but just wait a minute. And then I'd scare them, and then I'd had them. And then my other great accomplishment to me for my trapeze act, the only two things I ever thought was any good, was I did a good ankle drop. You didn't realize that I was doing an ankle drop, and for the life of me, God has to love me because I never fell out. But I would wait till the last second to catch. And one of the premier, most wonderful trapeze artists in our country, Joanne Janier at that time, came and visited, which I knew her since I was a little bitty girl. And when I come out of the act, she says, "Oh my God, BK, I would love to be able to do an ankle drop like that." You talk about proud, because she was excellent, terrific. But anyway, so then I did trapeze, and we was on that show for quite a while until one evening, and like I said, we'll go back to Bill always changing up my jobs. Continual. It just drove me crazy. I'd get so mad. But I think, well, my dad needs the job, you know, so I can't say nothing. And this one winter, probably I guess, it was after the year after high school, another fellow by the name of Billy Sheets, who was a real character, and I mean a real character, we made this wardrobe. Now you have to remember, back in the 60s, 50s, and 60s, the wardrobe was not skimpy at all. Okay. Well, we had to have this calypso outfit. And all it was a strapless bra with elastic around the neck and a trunks. Well, I've always been big-chested. Always been bashful. Did not want to wear that thing for love nor monies. So we had that. It was really a true calypso, very wild colors. And we had a big puffy sleeves that snapped on. We had a big calypso skirt and a basket of fruit on our head for swinging ladder. So anyway, we also had, for like cold, nasty nights or rainy nights, we had this nice leotard with long sleeves and long full body, and I loved it. So, but I'm going to tell this part first. On the first night that we had to work, I had to wear that wardrobe, the calypso wardrobe. I hated it because we had to go to the back of the ring, go to the right, take a sleeve off and drop it, go to the front, take a sleeve off and drop it. There was something else we had on. The vest. No, the skirt, the vest. One of them, had to be the skirt and drop it. And then when we come back into the ladder, we had to take the vest off. It was like doing a striptease act. I'm like, you know. And then, of course, we had to give them their beautiful basket of fruit to our swinging guy that swung the ladder, who I was so lucky to have Billy Sheets as mine. And the first night, starting out to do the little routine, he's standing at the back of the ring hollering, "Give him a bump and a grind, baby." And I'm like, oh, God. So I kept telling him, there's no way I'm doing the foot loop, because I'm going to fall out. I can't. I'm big. It's a strapless. I'm not doing the foot loop. "Yes, you got to do the foot loop." I says, "No, I don't. I am not doing the foot loop. I will do the rest of the routine. Then I will sit and pose for the rest of them. But I'm not doing the foot loop." Well, he's a turd, because just as it came time, he said something. I wish to God I could remember, but I can't. And I went into the foot loop anyway. Well, of course, the minute I hung down, what does he do then? "You're falling out," he's hollering up at me. And I'm like trying to hang on and do my tricks and keep my arms over my boobs. And anyway, I got used to it, and then it got so it didn't bother me at all. But Now, on past that story. Cold, sick. Oh, we'd had horrible weather. I was sick with a cold. Well, the first show he made us all, I mean, not just me, we had to wear the Calypso outfit. And I said, Billy, I'm so sick. I said, and it was rainy, icky, cold. I said, Billy, please, can't we wear the leotards? No, you have to wear the Calypso. So I went in and worked. But I was so sick, and I thought, there's no way the second show, because back then we did shows at 6 o'clock and then at 8 o'clock. So it was pretty doggone chilly by the time it got 8 o'clock, for us to do the next show. So I went and I said, look, I'm wearing the leotard this next show. I'm not going to wear this thing. Yes, you are. You're going to wear it. I said, well, I ain't wearing it, and if you think you're going to make me, you're crazy, because I won't work. So went on to the house. I didn't work. Mother's saying, you have to get dressed. You have to go do it. I said, no, I don't. I says, if he don't come over here and tell me I can wear it, I am not doing it. I'm not going in there. I'm quitting. I'll quit first. I'm sick. I'm not doing it. So he didn't come, and I quit. And I had to go the next day and tell Bill Griffith that I was quitting. Well, we don't want you to go. I said, I don't care. That's it. I've had it. To here. Then I had to tell his wife, Dolores, and she stood. I can still see her. Now, that's a long, long time ago. Most wonderful lady in the world. She's standing there ironing. BK, please don't go. I said, Dolores, I've got to. I can't do this. I can't take it anymore. But please, we love you. We don't want you to go, and all that. But anyway, she just passed away a few years ago. Sorry. Oh, I do that a lot. So anyway, I left. And let's see, what happened after that? I left. Oh, I went to work for my oldest brother. That was a farce. He was a mechanic. He was a genius mechanic. Now, I will give him that. And you can go out here at the cemetery and you'll see Deacon and Davy tombstones. And when my brother was like 6, 7 years old, he could tear a car down and put it back together. But he was just born with the gift. But Deacon and Davy helped him, incorporated it, to make him. He just unbelievable. Your car's broke down. Oh, wait a minute. Let me see. I can use this. Yeah, that'll work. And he'd fix it just like that. Listen to it. Tell you what's wrong with it. It was just amazing. Go back to the Silverlakes and Josephine, which my mother-in-law then, later. But when we was a kid, she'd gather up stuff. Toasters, radio, whatever was broke, she had it in a pile, so when Leonard come through, he could fix it. But
How many siblings did you have?
just the 2 brothers.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you were doing all these various jobs, were you getting paid even when you were?
Oh yes, yeah, you get paid.
No matter what, how
Oh
old you were?
yes, yeah.
Would you get that, or would your parents get it?
No. Well, I got it. Some parents, they got it. But I always got my, it wouldn't be much, maybe I got $1 a week, when I was real little. As a matter of fact, bringing that up, when my son was little, like 2 or 3, talking fairly well and moving around pretty good. And he was clowning with his grandmother, my mother, in the show. And he came to the office one day and he says, Mom, where's my money? And I went, oh, yeah, he's working, he's clowning. Yeah, I need to pay him so he knows, that you work, you get paid. Duh, I wonder why I didn't think of that sooner. So from then on, he got paid every week. And every year I raised him $1 or $2 or whatever. But now he'll tell you, when he got older, you know, a lot of times we used his money to keep the show going. Stuff like that. But yeah, most of the kids, you got paid. Now, like what I told you back when I'm pretty sure I was 7 there when I was doing the records and stuff. Now, I didn't get paid except that I had the privilege to eat in the cookhouse. So that was sort of my pay. If not, Mother and Daddy would have had to have paid for me to have ate in the cookhouse.
Well, at that time, what kind of living arrangements were you in?
Well, we had a trailer. It was a trailer, old silver thing. Had a little dinette in the front. Had a real ice box where you had to put ice in it to keep stuff cold. And, you know, I don't remember if we had a stove in there or not. I think maybe 2 burners or something. And then a bed and a closet on each side just in front of the bed. That was it. And the little thunder mug. You know what that is, right?
No idea.
That's one of those little potties that you tinkle in and carry it out.
Where were you and your brother sleep then? If there's one.
Well, see, my oldest brother, when I was born, he was 17. He was already driving semis over the road. Now, Lee was 10, but by the time, but Lee was there when I was little, so, and then that, but like the dinette thing made down, and him and I slept there. Yeah. But then it wasn't long, because 7 years, and he was out and gone and driving semi or working and whatever too.
Or shower at that time? Did it have a...
Oh, you have a little tub thing, looks like a bucket that you carry water and you go and wash and yeah, it's amazing if you take a gallon of jug of water and pour it how much, and you don't use much. But that's how we did, yeah. Carried the water. We had a water truck usually. Sometimes there'd be water on the lot. It's not like today. Or a lot of times I went down to the creek and brought water up for Mother. Yeah. But there was no indoor potties in any trailers. Now, I don't even know if the big bosses had that. And even growing up at home in Indiana, we had a hand pump. I grew up with a hand pump. And outside house, back out in the back. An outhouse, that's the name. My oldest brother he was married a few times. This one girl he married was from Chicago. I gotta tell you, since I brought it up. And he brought her home, of course, you know. I don't know, she's getting water anyway. That's all I can really truly remember about it. And she was pumping the pumps. We had a pump inside the house. That's luxury, you know. So she's pumping, and all of a sudden she's looking. And she'd pump a little bit, and she'd look some more, and she'd look some more, and she'd pump a little bit, and she started feeling around on it, and finally, I'm sure it was Mother. I don't think I did, but Mother says, "Pam, what are you looking for?" "Well, how do you get the hot water?" She came from Chicago, you know, they had all that good stuff. How do you get the hot water out of it?
When you were younger, growing up on the lot, were there rules that you had to follow? Were there certain things your mom said don't do, or certain things the owners never wanted you to, do? Or
well, when we were real, we weren't allowed to go out by when they were putting up the tent. We had to stay clear away from that. If the trucks are moving, you better be way the heck away from them. The electric cords on the ground, you can watch me walk anytime you want to. I will never step on one, because we were taught to step over them, because if there was a break or something, we could get electrocuted, I guess, was their thoughts. But we weren't allowed to, could not step on a light cord. Let's see. Couldn't hang on you're not supposed to hang on the side, the guy lines of the tent that guide the tent out. Not supposed to hang on them. But what we could do though, which was lots of fun, when we'd have a storm and the tent's blowing up and down, well, the poles kind of go up and down. Well, at the bottom of the quarter poles would be a rope, and that's how they'd hook it and pull it up. Well, us kids would put our feet in those ropes while the storm was in. We'd ride the poles up and down. You know. I don't know. I don't really remember a lot. We just seemed to know. It wasn't like, don't go do this or don't go do that. Stay away from this or stay away from that. Now, when I'm still, that's stupid. I'm old enough and I was young enough that I still remember working men were not allowed to talk to me. Working men were not allowed to even say, and if we happened to be walking and pass each other, they had better not say hello, hi, nada, nothing. You were not allowed to speak to them whatsoever. And if somebody made the mistake, one working man, they was taken out back and kind of talked to pretty strictly. And so they didn't talk to you. Yeah.
What about in the cookhouse? Were you able to sit at the same tables?
No, you have separate tables. Years even before I remember, but from stories my father and my father-in-laws told me, and Grandpa Archie and them, they used to have stewardesses or stewards, and they had tablecloths. Some of the shows, the nicer shows, but they sat and they were actually the, yep, there we go again. It's not the right word, but the office people, they had a table. Concession people had a table. Performers had a table. Elephant people had a table, or animal people usually it was. And working men had a table. And trust me, those poor working men were at the back of the tent every time. But they would, I don't remember ever there being the stewards or stewardesses, but they would wait on you pretty much. But now with me growing up, it was the staff. There we go. The staff table, concession table, performing table, and pretty much it was more animal and working man table when I grew up. Not so much separate there. But that working man or that concession man had better never sit down at the staff table. Better never sit down at the performer's table. Or we had a little chat out back of the tent.
Rules, buffet style or cafeteria style? Or
No.
family style?
No, always, any that I've ever been, or as long as I can remember, you would go up and they would fill your plate. Now, you could see sometimes, most of the time they would write a menu. We're having pork chops, baked potatoes, green beans, corn, carrots, salad, whatever. And then you could pick once you got up to the window and tell them what you want, but they would put it on your plate. So sort of cafeteria style, but not to where you just said, I want this or I want that. And a lot of them mostly was just they put it on your plate and you ate it or you threw it out. Oh, yeah. And drinks, some shows would have like Kool-Aid, or they'd have a big water cooler. And if you wanted a soda or something like that, you had to buy it. Let's see.
That was for all 3 meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
Well, we only ever had truly 2 meals. The 3 meals is the morning you get up, you have coffee and donuts, or the equivalent to donuts. That's it. That's breakfast. You get to the next town, then you have a true breakfast. And you would have, like one day maybe fried eggs and bacon or ham or whichever, not 2 or 3 choices, just one, and maybe potatoes or oatmeal or something like that. That would be usually around 10 o'clock. Now I'm telling you, when I grew up, because it's all changed now, I'm like, I don't believe this, but anyway, 10 o'clock. So I have a built-in time clock. At 10 o'clock, I'm getting hungry, and I know I can tell you every day it's almost 10 or it's just a little after 10. And at 4 o'clock, then you had the supper meal, which would be whatever they just fixed that night. It could be spaghetti, or it could be ham and beans, or it could be a big lavish meal, not too often. And I understand you've interviewed Lucy already, so I know what she told you if she talked about my cookhouse.
She has not.
What?
She did not talk about your cookhouse.
That's it. You wait till I
But
get
we're
out
not
of
really
here.
done with her yet. So,
We
Okay.
didn't finish with her.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
But we'll
Well,
have
then,
to ask her about
Please
your
ask her
cookhouse.
about my cookhouse.
You're making that mental note.
Yeah, I will see her tomorrow night. Mhm.
Okay, so we're up
Okay.
to the point where you quit.
Oh yeah, and I went with my brother for a while. Oh,
Were your parents with your brother?
no, they were still on the show.
They were- okay.
They stayed on the show. Mother did. Mother was on the show. Daddy was booking.
Okay.
By that time, I was like right at 18, I guess. Probably 18 when I quit. And of course, she didn't want me to go, that old thing and all that. What happened? I can't even remember. I'm lost in there for that point. Anyway, then we all were back together again at some point down the road. I can't remember.
Another time, another
Yeah,
circus.
yeah, another day, another circus. Okay, it must have been, all right, after that year. Yeah, it was. Oh, no. No. Back up. All right, that I know where we're at. I quit. I went on. That was cool. Come back that winter. And Bill's, well, I don't know the truth on this one. Whether he sold the circus to Dick Johnson and Louis McNeese to Burnham Brothers, and they tried to take it out. Well, Bill made a deal with Daddy to go ahead and book it, probably because Dick and Louie owed Bill the money for the circus, and I would bill post. And so my cousin Rosemary, who'd never been anywhere around a circus, went with me bill posting. And
We should probably say what that is.
oh, we don't know what bill posting is. Putting up the posters in the store windows. Different sizes. When I was little, we had huge pictorial posters that went up with beautiful lions or tigers or elephants or the horses. And they were the largest ones for putting in store windows was a one sheet, called a one sheet. Now you're going to want to know what size that was. It was about like that. I can't remember. How big? They were big. Trust me, they were big. And then you had posters that were, they had some pictorials. They were called half sheets, uprights, and then you had half sheet flats. And what a half sheet upright would be a large, extra large, but the shape of a regular writing paper if you were going to sit and write a letter, but big. And then a half sheet flat would be if you turned it sideways and hung it, only huge. Then we had panels, which were long, narrow posters. Then we had date paper, which were the same things. You'd have the one sheets, the half sheet uprights, half sheet flats, and the panels. Most of the time, on any major bill crew, then there was also the cardboard posters. They're just the cardboard ones, the smaller ones. And those went, of course, back then we had downtowns that were thriving. And somebody would put those just downtown because there were smaller windows, usually. Or you would lap over each other. If it was just a little window, you wouldn't even go in with a big poster. And I can remember very vividly, on the big posters, I had 125 every day to put out. And you best put them up somewhere. And that was 10 of those gigantic ones. And whatever the other figures they were. But it was horrible. I mean, it really was. We probably had 50 of the half-sheet flats, 50 of the half-sheet uprights, 10 of the one-sheets. I remember there was 10 of those. I remember that vividly. And then probably the 15 were the panels. But those went somewhere every day, in a window and at the top. And you carried sticks. They would be the little, I don't know if they were 1x1s, but just little, but they were long. And on the end, you would put a piece of rubber and tape it so that you would take the poster and fold it over that stick. You would put your, and that was another horrible thing back then. We had a little plastic, it was actually a cigarette case, but they cut it, and there was stickers about, probably they were about 2 inches by 2 inches, maybe something like that. Like,
A stamp.
yeah, and you had to lick them and put them on the poster. Then you would fold that poster over, take the stick, put it clear up at the top of that window, and then we had 2 sticks actually. One with the rubber piece and one that was shaved flat, kind of pointed, or what you call it, not pointed, but
Like a wedge.
yeah, kind of like a wedge. And then you'd rub those stickers down across. And that was bill posting. What they do today is, and I get upset when a bill poster, oh, they don't want them in their windows. They didn't want them in their windows when I was 10 years old either, but we put them in there. And that's the truth. They didn't.
Well, if they didn't, did you do it anyway? I mean, did you actually do it anyway?
No, you just found another place. Oh, yeah. And then we had bill posters. They also had what they called a tack hit. And that, if you could find a big enough, like, oh, somebody's side of a barn or their garage, maybe the paint was chipping. I mean, you could spot them. So you'd go to the house and you'd say, we'd like to staple some posters up here. We'll give you a couple of free tickets to the circus. And those you would put up, they were called 3-sheeters. Or you had 6-sheeters, 8-sheeters. Forget, I think that's about right, all of them. But those would be like collage. That's not maybe right, but it would be where the poster was a big, beautiful scene of the circus, but it was in 3 sections. So you had to staple this one, then match it for the pictures to look good, but when it was done, it was huge. And then, of course, you'd put the date posters up, either below or above or both, or cover the whole thing if you could get away with it to make a real big splash. And then we had what we called daubs. Don't ask. I don't know where all these names came from. And what those were, now that's when you got into the artfulness of bill posting. And they would be like cement wall or a wooden wall, but it's better if it was more smooth type an area. And what it actually consisted of, years ago we used to wallpaper the rooms in our homes, not paint them. And there was a paste that you used where you took that and you took these huge posters and you mixed this paste in a big old brush and you slopped it all over it and you rolled it up and took your little sticks again and you pushed it up praying you didn't tear a hole in it because it would get soft from the moisture of the paste. And then you would smooth it all out. Then you had a big, like a push broom per se type looking thing. And then you had to smooth it out, no wrinkles, because that picture had to be pretty, you know, when it dried. Those are called daubs.
Did someone come behind you and check to make sure you've done all this?
Nah. No, but when the show got there, they'd see them. Oh, and then we have what we call manager's paper. I forgot about that. That's the best part of all. We're going to show at the fairgrounds in this town. So you have a 1st of May or somebody's just trying to show off for the boss. And so we call that manager's paper because you're 6 miles out of town at the fairgrounds, but they've got 20 pieces of paper hung around the fairgrounds. And who's seeing it? It's not advertising. So they'd call that manager's paper because they wanted the manager to know that they'd been working. And then doesn't really have, the term goes with a lot of things, but it's talking about that. It just reminded me my mother-in-law got real hot because Jack Bennett red lighted a bunch of paper over the side of a mountain one time. He didn't want to put it up, and she just happened to pull in. Her and Joan stopped for a rest, and she's looking over, and there's the paper down. But it's called red lighting. You get rid of something, you red lighted it.
All right, we're picking back up, and is there anything else we need to know about bill posting?
Okay. Well, the one thing I was thinking about when we took the break was you had the circus paper. And it's not anything major, but as I said, we had different pictorial paper that we did, and there would be different pictures. Maybe we'd have 4 different pictures. So what you had to do every night was what we called circusing the paper, is you took a paper, one picture, put it, next picture on top, the next picture on top, the next picture on top, then start again. I'm sure there's a modern term for that, but we called it, you had to circus the paper. So every night we had to do that, and they did that for the reason of when you're walking down the street, you're seeing different pictures. You're not seeing just the same picture each time.
While we're still talking about that, how did they transport them? You were
Oh, and then you asked about the trucks. We had to have good time. Back then it was called a panel truck, which is a little taller than a Suburban, usually no windows. And then we had usually like a bread van or a UPS van truck, and they would build racks in there, and the kind of on an angle down towards the wall with the high point coming out, and then the different posters was always put in there except for the date paper, and they stayed in the box that it got shipped in. And of course you put the last date. You usually get, if I remember right, like about a week's worth of paper at a time. And then the last date that you're going to do would be on the bottom. So as you're doing the date paper, that comes off. Oh, I forgot about the tails. Oh, yes. Then I forgot about that part. Yes, I wonder why, because I hated it. On the pictorial posters at the bottom, they would make strips with the date and the sponsor and the showgrounds, just like on the dated paper, because all the dated paper was just the information and the date of the show. So then what you had to do was take one of these long staples and staple that, we called it a tail, onto each of these pictorials for a certain town or a certain date. So you got those shipped into you all the time, but you had a enormous amount of all the pictorials because they were just standard. Forgot about that part. Now we did eventually evolve from the little sticky things to putting them up to masking tape, and now it's kind of evolved to Scotch tape. And it was funny because back one store said, "Oh, I don't want that masking tape on my windows. Here, use my Scotch tape." And then the next store said, "Oh no, don't use that Scotch tape. Here, use my masking tape." I used to get a kick out of that because it was like, okay, whatever you want, we'll handle it. And then a lot of times, if you can get a good hit by a door where they're coming in and out, you'll back the paper. And that's where you put, so that in the window they can see it coming in or they can see it going out. So it's like a double hit.
And you call them hits?
Yeah. Oh yeah, they're hits. See that hit? And then going back to when I was young, well, it's when I was old enough to really be out there bill posting. Father, my dad, would get up 5 o'clock. By 5:30, we better be on the street. But all we did was drive around town checking it out. Oh, there's a good tack hit. I'm going to try and get that for a daub. Now, you see those windows? You ought to be able to get at least 2 of those one sheets in there. And he'd just scope out the town in the morning early. Then we go back to wherever was parked for that night. You get your and there's another term. You get your hod of paper. Each one of us had a hod. And like I said, I can remember vividly, I had 125 pieces. And that put together is called a hod of paper. Boy, why didn't we just say, hey, get your stack of papers, posters? I never realized him telling all these names for everything.
HOD? Or
I guess. I never spelt it. I never have. It's just a hod of paper. You guys are going to have to figure that one out on your own.
Well, we got onto this because
Okay.
you were telling us about when you quit that circus, you were bill posting.
Right. Oh, okay. And then that's when the Silverlakes bought Clark and Walter's Circus. And then I went there and, well, I don't know. That's silly stories. You don't want silly stories, do you? Okay. Well, as I told you, the Silverlakes, I grew up with them. Matter of fact, there was, 5 boys, I guess, and 1 girl. And all 5 boys wanted to marry me, per se. Not really. It was just, Marcus, well, if I was a little younger, I'd marry her. And Franklin was, well, I'd marry her, but I'm already married. And Melvin never said it. Jimmy never said it. But they all, that's another one. And Joe, but if you wait till I grow up, I'll marry you. Just silliness. It was not meaningful, but we all kidded. One time, Marcus, I always looked older than I am. Always, all my life. When I was 15, I looked 25. No sweat. But went to church with Marcus one morning, and he went back to church that night, and the gal's church wanted to know where his girlfriend was. He says, she's only 15. She ain't my girlfriend. He's the oldest. But, okay, back off the subject again. Okay, we bought Clark and Mom and Dad, or at that point it was Brownie and Josephine Silverlake bought Clark and Walter's Circus.
Now, have they owned circuses before?
No,
So
never
this was
had
their
on.
first
They have just been performers all their lives. Okay, so then Melvin kept saying, you need to get here. We need you here. We need you to come. The girls can't wait for you to come. And Jimmy was engaged to a girl, Marlon. That's Melvin's next younger brother. And he was engaged to Marlon. And then her sister was on the show, who Melvin had dated, Sharon. And then the sister Myrna was on the show. And then all the boys, of course, everybody, the family. And then there was, when they bought the show, some people stayed with the show, some just left. Because the Silverlakes are buying it, what do they know? They're not going to take a chance, you know, or whatever. I don't know what their reasoning exactly was. But anyhow, so Melvin kept, you need to come, you need to come. The girls need you. Myrna's wanting you to get here, and, you know, you can do this and you can do that. And besides, you could, that was it. You could get here and you could show Marlon and Sharon how to do this stuff. And I'd say, well, Myrna can show them, Joe can show them, and Franklin can, any of you can show them how to do that. No, because you know how to do it the best. You need to be here and you need to be showing them how to do this stuff. I said, well, Melvin, I can't leave my dad stranded. I said, you've got to wait till he finds somebody that replace me. Well, you need to be here. Every time we'd talk on the phone, you need to be here and show these girls how to do this. Sharon can't wait for you to get here so you'll show her how to do the swinging ladder or the trapeze or whatever. So finally I was able and I joined the show. So I get there, and first one I met was Marlon. Jimmy came up just on the lot, you know, and they were together, and Jimmy introduced me, and she just kind of, well, hi, how are you? And I thought, okay, you know, that's cool. So then I saw Myrna, who I have worshipped. I mean, I used to follow her around with little puppy dog eyes, you know. Oh, boy. Wherever Myrna was, I wanted to be, you know. So here's Myrna. Hi, Myrna. Hello, what are you doing here? What do you want? Oh, well, she's just in a bad mood, you know, whatever. So went around, did a little bit more. And finally, I went in the tent, and Sharon was practicing swinging ladder, and Joe, the youngest brother, was helping her, you know, to learn. And I just walked up, because, you know, I'm so bashful. And I said, hi, you must be Sharon, I'm BK. Oh, my God, I'm so glad you're finally here so you can teach me how to do this. And the light bulb went on. Myrna was mad at me. Marlon just kind of gave me a cool welcome. Melvin has been telling them that wait till BK gets here, she'll show you how to do it. So they hated me before I ever arrived. And I went to Myrna. I said, Myrna, what is the deal? You know me. You know I don't know that much. You know more than I do. You're older. You know better. Why did you let him do that? But they did not like me because of Melvin. Well, wait till BK gets here. She'll show you how to do that. And he's telling me, you need to get here so you can show him. He did it. Honest. Swear to God. You can ask any of them. So anyhow, we went on. And this is where my Bill Griffith comes back into play. It wasn't long after that I realized that I was going, I'd forgot when I quit Bill Griffith's show, I told him, I said, the only reason you've ever hired me is because of my dad anyway. I forgot that main key point. So after they bought the show and we all worked towards making it work, but they had mostly been just performers. Now they had cousins that did some concessions, and so they did that, and trying to make all this other stuff work and go. And then I realized, Bill, I have to bite my tongue. I owe you an enormous apology. He had been teaching me every aspect of the business. And I mean every aspect. And when I say that I had my job was shoveling elephant shit, that's what it was. I was no better than any working man. So, he really taught me by learning, by doing. And so that helped with me knowing. Of course, I got a lot of flack from it because then I was the know-it-all and I was trying to tell them how to do it and all this and that, and they'll still tell you that. But they'll still tell you they all love me very much, and I love them very much. But it was just the situation. I just happened to know because Bill had taught me. I knew how to handle the sponsors. I knew how to whatever, part of it. And so anyway, Melvin finally told his mother that we were getting married, and she pitched a fit. So Melvin and I left the show. And my mom and dad were there, of course, by that time, which was in the fall. And we were in Sulphur, Louisiana, by Lake Charles, in a state park. No, Daddy was down there billposting for King Brothers, so we went back to work for them. That's what it was. So we finished billposting this one day, and Melvin says, well, let's go get our license to get married at the courthouse. So we did. And I don't know why I wasn't there, right by my father and Melvin. But when we all went out the courthouse, Daddy says, come on, we got to hurry up so you can go get married. I said, Daddy, we just got the license. We got to wait 3 days. No, me and Melvin fixed that. We wavered. They wavered all that for us. So we left the court after working, sweating, in the hot sun in Sulphur, Louisiana, put it billposting. We left there, went back to the state park, to the trailer, got Mother. I grabbed a set of clothes. Then we had to, from the state park, had to go into town to the judge's chambers. And so on the way, I changed clothes, at least, to get married in. And the funny part Melvin did was, the judge said, do you have this, her father's approval or something like that? And Melvin says, well, who do you think that is with the shotgun, of course, We got married and that was it. We just went on our merry way. And of course, then we got back in with the family, and we went the next year with Clark and Walters. Let's see, it was 67, 68, 69, and 70. We were all the family basically together. They'd argue and fight and come and go and that type of stuff. They're the huge family, and they like to fight and argue. And BK was always there trying to stop it. And then BK was in trouble, but...
How long did your parents have the show?
Not my parents.
Oh,
Melvin's parents. Well, okay. 67, 68, 69, 70. It's Clark and Walters. The winter, fall, late fall, early winter of 70. Maybe it's when we went home for Christmas, or I don't know. We were up north at my parents, went back down south. And Mom said, Melvin's mom. Okay, Mother is my mother, Mom is Melvin's mother. That's how it was, and Dad was my dad. No, Dad was Melvin's dad, and Daddy was my dad. It's a mess. Oh, well, it's worse, because it's Melvin's. But anyway, let's see, in 70 when we got there, she says, well, we've got 2 of everything. We just thought maybe you and BK would like to take out your own circus. Oh, I know. We were doing marionette shows up around the Chicago area for Jimmy Cole. Not Jimmy Cole. It's Cole. Oh, what's his last? Not Jimmy. Oh, I forget it. Anyway, marionette shows in Chicago at school lyceum programs. And of all things, we did the circus. So now that we're on that, I got to tell a story about that. See, back me up in a minute. We had the trapeze artists, the clowns, and we had a huge elephant marionette. And we had this elephant for 4 years, Dixie, who's a little bit on the mean side, ornery side. She didn't mean to be, it wasn't her fault, because her trainer, when she was little, played and pushed, and she pushed back. Well, when she got bigger, it was more than pushing. But anyhow, and we did the little circus skit, and we'd talk and do things. And of course, I smoke. Melvin used to smoke. So we'd get all set up. This one day, we're somewhere up around there, and we went out to school, down the hall and outside to have a cigarette. And the janitor come, and he says, "Hey, your elephant got loose." Melvin's boom gone. I'm right behind him. We was almost to the stage when we registered. It wasn't our real elephant. The marionette. It was an automatic reflex, The elephant got loose, man. I can still. My heart was beating. His was beating. We laughed, and that poor janitor, I know he thought we was wacko because we flew. I mean, it wasn't just, it was gone. All right, back to, I forgot about that. All right. Okay, we was doing the marionette show, so we went home to Southern Indiana, and Mom said we ought to take out our own show. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Type thing. And I'm like, So we went back up to go back to work and the marionette shows. And we talked about it. Melvin says, well, what would be wrong with that? And talked to my mom and dad about it. And Daddy says, well, usually you're through with the marionette shows by 1 or 2 o'clock. And he says, you could go ahead and book the show, the rest of the afternoon, which in his mind was great and would have worked perfectly. But for me, it didn't work. Well, I forgot back in 68 is when I got thrown into booking. Now, I'd been with my dad, but never like in meetings, and he'd tell about how he'd do it and what he'd talk and say to people, but I'd never really booked. So in the spring of 68, Aunt Torchy says, well, I need you to go with me. I'm going to go booking for our Clark and Walters, the family show. And, I learned a lot from her. Well, wait in the car. I'll be back. You make me nervous if you go in with me. And so I can't remember. But anyhow, it got to where we were desperate, per se. Okay, BK, you get to go booking now. Oh, all right. Well, of course, I knew the circus. I knew how to talk to him about that and had the contract. And so I just took off booking, and Daddy'd give me tips, and Aunt Torchy'd give me tips, and I just started booking. But if you recall, I said we were kind of desperate, which means maybe I was 2 weeks ahead of the show. We needed a town. So I had to hurry up and fill that in, per se, or sign up a town so we had a place to show that day. And maybe I'd be 3 weeks, or maybe I'd be a week, or a week and a half. Whenever BK got to go booking, she was right ahead of the show, filling them in. So Daddy said, back to the marionette show, and we were talking about taking out a second circus, and talking to my dad, and he said, once you finish doing the marionette, you can go around and book the show. And you'll have part of the season booked. He says, and then I'll take over. So we tried that. I tried that. We went. I went booking. Had no clue. I'm 6 months ahead of the show. I don't know what to tell these people. Well, we'll have a meeting here in a couple of weeks, and we'll get back with you. And I'm like, no, I need to know now, and I couldn't book. I have had a heck of a time. I can't push them. I don't know how to close it. Like, yeah, it's 6 months away, but we need to get it figured out now for the routing, you know. We can't jump from here to there to here. And so that didn't work out real well. I think I got a couple of towns. That's about it. My dad got the rest. So anyhow, we agreed we'd take out circus and second circus because we had 2 of everything. Make sure you keep that part in mind. So it came time, and we had 2 of everything. We had 2 elephants. Well, we actually had 3. We had 2 elephants. We had 2 cotton candy machines. What was the other thing? What was the other thing? Very trivial, whatever the other thing was. But there was only 3 that we had 2 of everything. No 2 tents. No extra semis or trucks, no extra generator, no extra this, no extra that. So we took every penny we made and we bought a tent and we bought a generator. We took out a loan and we bought, oh, seats. That was the third thing, but only a few extra seats. But we put Fisher Brothers Circus. Oh, that was the thing. Back up. Then it was, well, what are you going to call it? What are you going to call this circus? And I said, well, we're going to call it Fisher Brothers. What? I said, well, that was Grandpappy's circus. Remember I told you about the veterinarian and they trained the dogs and that was the name, Fisher, because that was his last name. And it was Fisher Brothers back in the probably late 20s, I think it was. Seems like, I want to say 26. And I said, why wouldn't we call it Fisher Brothers? What other name would you? That's the family. And so we called it Fisher Brothers Circus. And we put all this junk together, and I'm telling you, it was junk. My mother had a credit card, though. Way back then. I was impressed and thankful because when we left winter quarters for opening day, which was in southern Indiana, Melvin could tell you the name we opened in. I can't never remember that stuff. I had $8 in my pocket and Melvin had 12. Mother gassed the trucks with her credit card. We got to the town. A circus fan from Bellevue, Illinois came over. Melvin still had to go on down into Kentucky and pick up our elephant that we got to use, which was Dixie, the one that was really nice. Not. We got her, of course. Jimmy came. Somehow he came, or maybe it was the next day or two, and fine-tuned our generator because that's what he did in the Navy. And then, of course, he had to go back to Clark and Walters. And to open the circus with the circus fan, because he used to come and sell banners. And now I got to explain that part. Okay, banners are you go to a store and you sell, it's an advertising. And we paint them very quickly. Shoe polish, whatever's handy, magic marker, of the name of the store, and we hang it up and we make an announcement about it with a captive audience, and they pay him to do that. It's for advertising. But instead of him getting pay on opening day, he got light bulbs for the big tents, big tops, so that they could see us perform. He got a chain for the elephant that we could tie her up because we didn't have one. I don't remember what all he got, but stuff like that.
He did a lot of trading.
Yes, he did a lot of trading that day. And I was just getting ready to have the boys bring my car around. We'd had the tent ready to go up, but it was getting later and later, and I was getting more nervous because Melvin hadn't got back with Dixie yet to pull the tent up. And I said, bring the car around. I said, we're going to pull it up with the car. And I don't even know if he got to the car. Melvin pulled in. Oh, I was so happy. I can remember. I was so happy because I was there. I wasn't by myself. Everybody we had were great people. But I felt like I was without him being there, you know. And then we had a sideshow. Oh, God, I don't remember what we had in there. We must have had that. I can't believe we had the 5-legged cow then. Maybe we did. What else did we have? A few animals for the side. Llama. Oh, that was one thing Mom had. We had 2 of. We had a extra llama. Of course, Dixie would be in the sideshow. I can't remember what all animals. Maybe we had a monkey or 2 extra, you know, that we got. But anyhow, here come Wesley. Now it's opening time for the first show. Crowd of people. The midway is just full of people. Here comes Wesley with the animals for the sideshow. Because the sideshow was on this side. The animals were tied out over here. So he walks them through the crowd. Excuse me, I need to get through here. Takes the animals in the sideshow. Melvin gets up and does the ballet to open the sideshow. I think we charged $0.25 to go in and see the sideshow. Almost everybody paid to go in and see all these animals. And Wesley just walked through them. It was awful. It was awful. So, but we had packed out. Both houses were full. We didn't have a lot of help. I had made Mike Gaska, the fellow I showed you the picture, he was with us. That's another whole story. We made the office and candy wagon out of an old, ugly trailer. Old. Even for then it was old trailer. And we built it ourselves, him and I. Nobody was interested in that part of the show. And so Mike helped me. But we'd go into town, which is Brownstown, Indiana, and I'd say, I need one of those things that goes, you know, kind of crooks around and then it folds under, and then it's got a clamp on it to the hardware store, to the lumber yard, because I didn't know nothing about building anything, what anything was called. And it was comical because I think they had maybe 3 or 4 guys working there, and I'd walk in that front door, and I'm telling you, they made a beeline for that back, and whoever was last had to wait on me. Because they hated it, because I didn't know the names of none of this stuff. Well, you know, it kind of crooks around this way, or, you know, it's about that long, or maybe it's that long, about that big, and they was like, oh my God. Finally, I said, lady, just go back there and find it. Whatever you want, just go get it. But anyway, we built this office, had an outside door, front of the trailer, and really it wasn't much of an office, more like a ticket window to sell the tickets out of. Then there was a door that went from the inside there back to the concessions, and there was a cotton candy machine, counter, snow cone machine, and then popcorn across the back. Now I'm here to tell you, of course I was pretty young back then, I would sell a ticket, catch a floss off the machine, I could wait on somebody, or I could grind ice, or I could make a snow cone, go back, sell the next ticket, and catch the next floss that come off that machine. Because we didn't have a lot of help the first few days. I guess I did that a couple of weeks, and Diane Wilson showed up, and she took over the concessions then for me. And I cooked. I did 3 or 4 acts in the show. Oh, I had Joe's dog act. I did my goat act, the dog act, swinging ladder, trapeze, and the elephant. I did 5 acts in the show. And checked with the sponsor, cooked. My mother helped me. One of us would try and get dishes. We'd hit and miss. It was something. But we had nothing to start with. And about 5 days later, we were over by Terre Haute, Indiana, and they have a concession supply place there. And I was so proud because I had money. I went and bought a popcorn machine. We didn't have one, but that's where it was. I mean, the back, we set it there. We didn't have a snow cone either, so I must have just done the floss and Coca-Cola. That must have been what it was, yeah.
And flosses.
The cotton candy. Yeah, where you pick it and fix it, and I'd sell a ticket, take it, and I'd either fix ice in a cup. That's what it was, because we didn't have a snow cone or the popcorn, because I bought the popcorn just 3 or 4 or 5 days later. And I can't remember maybe I called and ordered a snow cone. I can't even remember now.
Did you ever sleep?
Not much. Told you I was younger. And then the first payday, I think we had like $1,500 left over after paying everything and paying all the help and everything. And Mother and I were just nervous wrecks. Have all that money. Oh my goodness. What are we going to do? We better get it sent home. Oh my God. Oh my God. Just panicked. And before the season was over that year, because that was 1971, we opened Fisher Brothers Circus. We had one day that we did not have packed, jammed crowds. So before the season was over, if I didn't have $1,000 in my purse, I was broke. But to start, I was scared to death.
What size lots were you looking for?
About 200 by 300 feet. It was a small one tent. You haven't seen Kelly Miller's circus. It was about the size of it. Didn't look as pretty. I mean, trust me. We built it where it did look pretty. I mean, but it was open. We got pictures. I'll show you someday. It was horrible. And our tent was a square tent, not round, because that's the only one we could afford and buy.
But I bet the crowd didn't know the difference.
Nope. That year, and I am not exaggerating, not even an ounce or less, we would pull on the lot and there was people standing where we needed to set up. And I'd say, please go home, people, please go home. When I would go in to do trapeze, let's say, Melvin would announce me. They'd open the back door. And it wasn't just me, whoever. But I'd say, excuse me, I need to get in here. If you'd like to see this act, please excuse me. I need to get through. Day after day after day. And the people loved us, just loved us. Then in 71, Ted Wilson kept begging us to come. That was 71. What was that winter? I guess we opened in 72 down in Texas. He begged us to come down to the Rio Grande Valley of Texas because we could open earlier and close later. Because in Indiana, the weather wouldn't let you. And so, we hummed around and hummed. I'm a decision maker. Drove me crazy. Melvin says, well, what if? And I say, we're going. If we lose everything we got, we'll just start over, do something else. You know, I mean, you got to try or you ain't going to get anything. It's my theory. But anyway, we went. And we had friends down there, and we stayed on their property the first year. And then same thing. Just even down in there. My dad was exceptional. When he booked for Clark and Walters, they had packed houses. He just knew where to be, when to be there. He did something magical with these sponsors, the people he talked to. And now that I'm on my father, we'll go back to Bill Griffith. And Bill Griffith told me one time, he said, because my father was round belly and wore suspenders and not a slob at all, but he wasn't well, there's a word, I want Savoy, savvy, wasn't chic or cool. He was just a little old, there he was, Raymond Duke, you know. And Bill did a survey one time, he told me, just a few years ago. He says, you know, I couldn't figure out what your dad would do to these people. Because here's Bill Griffith, dressed to the nines, suit, you know, I mean, and that's the way you would think that you should go in and present yourself to these people. Daddy would wear a sports jacket if the first time he's seeing them, but nothing way elaborate. And Bill said, I couldn't believe it. And he says, I asked him, I said, why would you sign to have this circus? What made you want, what did Mr. Duke tell you that made you decide? You know, why did you want to do this? Why did you sign that contract? He said it was like for 3 or 4 weeks. He asked every day. And he said every one of them said, we just believed him. We just believed him. And he did tell the truth. And see, and I was bad about that. When I started booking, I undersold us. And a lot of times the sponsors, once in a while I'd be back to a town where I'd booked, you know, and they'd say, well, you didn't tell us you had all this stuff. I said, well, it's a circus, you know. But so I really would undersell it more than oversell it. And to me afterward, I thought, well, that's pretty cool because you're not there. You're getting more than what you told them they were getting, so they're more pleased. But I've been known to have sponsors want to keep me, and had one sponsor up in Indiana. I was sick, horrible with pneumonia, and him and his wife, they weren't going to let me leave. I said, I've got to go. I've got to be at the other side of the state in the morning. You're going to stay right here with us. We had sponsors in Texas. In the wintertime, they would call, BK, there's a wrestling show wants to come in here, and they'd like for us to sponsor them. Would that be all right with you? You'll still bring your circus, won't you? And I mean, that's proud. That's pride for them to, and not just one, several would do that. I booked one year coming out of Texas, because we would come out of Texas, go up, work our way up to Michigan, and work our way back to the Valley of Texas. One year kind of northeast Texas. Oh, shoot. Not Marshall, wasn't Marshall, but over in that area. Anyway, I booked it, and the sheriff's department was our sponsor. We had a nice show, had a big crowd, you know, everything was great and fine and lovely, right? And we go on. Well, we had hired a fella to help my dad book. So coming back that fall, and I didn't catch it right at first, but, you know, I was kind of thought about the name of the town, and I'm thinking, I booked that. I'm sure I booked that this spring. And so I got looking to make sure, you know, because I thought, surely, and for the sheriff's department. You do realize we showed there talking to the same guy I talked to, you know. He says, yes, but we liked it so much we wanted you back. And so when the guy came in, I said, shoot, yeah, come on. But he didn't know that we'd showed it, you know, in the spring. So we showed it in the spring and we showed it in the fall. Had 2 good crowds both times. But that I was proud of.
Would you ever run into other circuses as you're passing through? Did they ever get close to you?
Oh, they do, but not very often. Even today they will, but not often.
So it wasn't even an issue for you?
No. Oh, the old timers would get all upset. We got to go in and tear their paper down. And they would too. Or we got to get them tickets for our free tickets or something for our show. We got to do something. We got to get in there before they do. They do tear down the posters and put theirs up. I mean, One day. Guys, give it a break. You know, I mean, it isn't going to make or break you over a whole season. And they panic. And oh my Lord, and you don't steal somebody else's help off of another show. You're working for Clark and Walters and you're working for Fisher Brothers. But you'd rather be working for Fisher Brothers, but I can't hire you. And not because we're family. I should have used a better example. Like Carson and Barnes and Culpeper Merriweather or something. You don't hire other people. And it's even bad when, say, you quit Carson and Barnes. I've had it. I don't want to go. And just maybe a week, 2 weeks, a month down the way, you happen to talk to Culpeper and he needs somebody for a job, so he hires you. You're still in trouble because you left there. He stole you. Culpeper stole you from, well, they didn't. I mean, most of the time, very few, I'm sure, very, very few did anybody con somebody into leaving one show for another. It just would happen, you know, that way. But, oh yeah, they used to get paranoid over it. And I'm like, you guys are nuts. But they did. I mean, it really, they used to. They truly did. They'd worry about route. Well, and you don't want to be in the same route, really, as another show. I mean, you need to be kind of on your own, and they need to be. And my theory always was, why don't we all get together, and you take this route, you take this one, and I'll take what's left. It don't matter. Let's all have a certain, next year we could switch so that the public has seen a different, oh no, that never flew. We still compete for towns. Right down here, Ringling Brothers Circus. My nephew is the marketing director. He's got something more than that for a title. He's one of the big wigs of the whole district. He does Tulsa, he does Oklahoma City, he does Dallas. He's in charge of all of them. New Orleans, this whole area out here. He's worried because Circus Soleil is going to be there in Dallas. Means nothing. People are going to Ringling Brothers. Or, you know, whatever. And he told me, MBK, you better not be booking Carson and Barnes around here. Yeah, okay, Bradley, right. I booked it anyway. What is it? Nobody, I mean, around here, yes, Carson and Barnes, they do kind of know the name. But Ringling, it's Ringling. Mm-hmm. Any other circus, majority, it's a circus. Well, what was the name of that circus that was here last week? I don't know. It's a circus. The name.
They had a good time.
Yeah. The name usually is not very well, I mean, you know, it's not a household thing. Ringling is a household. On the East Coast, Clyde Beatty was a household name. On the West Coast, Circus Vargas. Other than that, Carson and Barnes, Kelly Miller, kind of Midwest. Other than that, though, they don't know it's a circus. They don't know the name of it. Couldn't tell you. The average person.
What were some of your bigger challenges? You know, as you've established and you're going along.
With the Fisher Brothers Circus.
Fisher Brothers.
We didn't have any. I had my dad. That's off. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no way to explain it to you. And the people that used to know him, I mean, a lot of them are gone, but they all would tell you he had something. Him and Gene Christian. I always give Gene credit because Gene was just as good, and they were good friends, and they'd write back and forth who was the best booking agent, you know, but they were good friends. He just had a knack. He studied it. He studied where to be, when to be there. He ate, slept, breathed circus. It was everything to him.
And how long did y'all have Fisher Brothers?
Well, we sold it actually in 1976. in, well, actually in 75. My mother in 75, and this may as well be told too. Fall of the year, my mother took Mel Ray home to the Rio Grande Valley of Texas for school. My mother-in-law, Josephine, took and Joe, the youngest boy, and his friend Don. Dad was there too, Brownie. They all took J.R., Myrna's only daughter, the sister, to the Rio Grande Valley to home for school, and then my mother would stay, and Mel Ray and J.R., Myrna's daughter, would go to school. And in the spring of 75, our cook left. Not long after we opened. Don't even remember who it was. And so I put in ads in the newspaper around Houston, Texas, where we were showing. I kept calling and putting in ads for a cook. And this fella came out, and I hired him. And he was actually a gourmet cook. And I said, well, why would you want to go with the circus? I just want to travel. So I hired him. And at that time, my mother was home with the kids for school, staying, because always that's kind of the way it is. Somebody, when school's on, unless they're homeschooled, family is staying with the kids. All right. So I hired him, and he stayed, and he did a great job. We ate terrific. And he had a problem. He was going through a divorce also, and so that was why, I think part of it was why he joined. And anyway, something come up, and he had two young girls, and so he said he needed to go and take care of that, and I said, that's fine, that's okay. And so he left. Then Mother brought Mel Ray and J.R. on the road, on the show, and spent the summer. And came time for school to start, and then that's when Mother took Mel Ray home, and Josephine and them, Joe, and took J.R. home. And then they were going to come back to the show, Josephine, Mom, And anyway, and we didn't have cell phones, of course. So every Sunday I would call Mother whenever she was home, and just checking in type thing. Well, this Saturday, McDonald's, the chain restaurant, had came, and they were wanting to buy Fisher Brothers. And so we were talking with Ronald McDonald, and somebody got this brainy idea. Well, we talked to them. They liked us. I'm telling you, Fisher Brothers was a liked show. Anyhow, we'd met them, went down to the restaurant, and we were talking business, and we had a big jump the next day, and it was a Sunday and an early show, and I told Melvin, I said, I'm going to call Mother before we go back to the lot, because in case I don't get to tomorrow. And so I called, and she said, Dennis is here, who is the cook that I hired in the spring. And I says, she says, yeah, he's been here almost a week. He's been helping me around here, cleaning up the yard and doing different stuff. Whatever, he went over and helped Mom and them at their place, trying to get it, whatever they needed, because they've been gone for a while. Whatever, I don't know. Because we had a yard man, Julio. There's another story. Anyway, so she said, do you want me to send him back to the show, or do you want him just to stay here? Because, it was the fall of the year. And so I asked Melvin, I said, do you want him to come back? Yeah, we need another driver. Tell her to get him on a plane in the morning. And I said, Mother, do you have enough money to get him on a plane in the morning and fly him out here, and we'll pick him up? And she said, yes, but you'll have to send me some because I'm going to have to get another window unit, air conditioner, because it's hot this year down here. And I said, all right, I'll do that Monday morning. Well, that night, Joe and his friend Don and Dennis and JR all went to another friend's in the valley that Joe knew, and well, we all knew him, but they were friends, and they went and they partied and watched TV and movies or whatever, and JR was 15, but Joe was her uncle. Okay, so they all went, and they came back, and our place there had a circle driveway, and off to the side of the circle we had made trailer places, so they were parked there. And Mother and JR and Mel Ray were sleeping in the house, and my aunt was there too. A pretty good sized house. And anyway, JR went on up to the house, and Dennis was sleeping in our bunkhouse, and so he went to go back there, and Joe and Don went on into Joe's trailer to go to bed. And Joe said about the time he got his clothes off and just laid down, they heard a shot, a scream, and another shot. And of course, my mother-in-law, Josephine, was next door, and she heard it. So she was trying to get her shoes on, and she heard these footprints running down the gravel driveway, and she thought it was JR because she knew it was her granddaughter screaming. And we're thankful she didn't get out there because it wasn't. Anyway, Joe and Don got their shoes on and ran up to the house, and Joe said, Don, go get Dennis, we may need him. You know, and they're trying to look in to see in the house. Well, Dennis wasn't there. And Dennis had broken in the back of the house and shot my mother and JR and killed both of them. And then he ran down, we only know this later, and stole the neighbor's truck and then left it stranded, and they found him the next day walking down the street in Donna, Texas, still had the gun in his pocket. And so we were pretty disheartened, and everybody loved my mother. She was and that's another thing. I'm not saying my dad was a great agent because he was my dad. He just was. If he was lousy, I'd tell you he was lousy. And my mother, though, everybody loved her. Just she was an amazing person. Just Ralph said the other day, was talking about her, and he says, I don't believe I ever heard anybody even say a crossword about your mother. Everybody loved her, and they did. But anyway, that we got disheartened, and we sold the show, and that fall, wintry, like November-ish, December, and next June I was driving to the next lot one morning, and I went, we sold our circus. We just were at a loss, it just threw us.
All right, so now we're picking back up.
Okay. And we sold the circus, and we sold it to friends, Johnny Frazier and his brother Corky, and they told us we should go right along with them, and we did, and that didn't work out. Well, Johnny left and took his circus to Canada, which he had and done every year, and Corky stayed, and Melvin and Corky didn't get along, and well, I don't think anybody get along too well with Corky, but anyway, we did that. So we left. The only one that actually stayed the whole season was Mike Gasca, My dad finally left. He was not doing real well with his heart and his pacemaker. I can't remember where Daddy went. Anyway, we went home to Indiana, my home, northern Indiana, and we stayed for a while. And a fellow by the name of Bob Tripp got a hold of us and wanted us to come and manage Mid-America Circus. And so we did that. Didn't know the people or anything, but we needed a job. We got there. I was to run the office, Melvin was to run the show, and Bob, this all over the phone, Bob said, my son-in-law will be there with the office to meet you in whatever town it was we were meeting him in. See, I can't remember. Melvin could tell you the town, what day, you know, all that good stuff, but I can't. Anyway, his son-in-law was there, and he handed me this little case. He said, here's the office. And Bob says, and I'll see you in a week or two. I mean, he hadn't seen us, we didn't know each other, but we ran the show. And
Where was that based out of, Mid-America?
Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Oh, okay.
Bob Tripp was the man's name. Superior phone promotion guy. He knew how to do the phone sales, the promotion, had people on the seats. Oh my Lord. But we were with them for that year. We did winter shows with him. He taught me like more. I'd done phone sales, but he really taught me, him and his wife, more how to do them and things that, you know, I didn't know. But I don't think he showed up for about 2 weeks. And just a couple or 3 days before he showed up, I was real nervous because I was short $400. And I recounted. I went through a whole ink pad of calculating ink papers and checked and was a mess and could not balance. So he came, and so I went and told him. And he said, oh, it'll turn up. And I'm like, oh, thank you. So he says, now, tomorrow night, he says, we're all going to go out to dinner. All right. And I'm thinking, are these people all right? He don't know us, never seen us, hires us, turns over everything, you know, and I hear he shows up and I tell him I'm short money. Well, it's okay, it'll show up. And so the next night we going out to eat. So I dug under the bed or wherever and bringing out this new pair of shoes, or a nicer pair of shoes to go out and eat. Well, I'd stuck the money in there because I had a habit of, with our show, anybody, and I've always told my son and when I die, you know, make sure you check all my pockets, make sure you check the freezer, make sure you check. And here was that money, and I said, oh my God, I forgot I put it there. So I took it to him, but I had panicked. But anyway, just a fantastic guy, and we were around him for maybe next 2 or 3 years. And let's see, what did we do after that? Oh, I guess maybe that's when Jimmy and Marlon, what the heck were they? Maybe he'd been on Great American Circus, which is out of Florida, or was out of Florida. And anyway, we all got together and put together a little indoor circus and did that for a while.
And what was it called?
What did we call that? C&W Variety Show, I believe. Clark and Walters, but we cut it short to C&W Variety Show. I believe that was it. And let's see, what did we do after that? When Jimmy went to Fisher Brothers. Oh, I think that's about the time we got mixed up with Gopher. He was on his show for a while. Don't ask me which title he had, because it changed often. Still does. And, then, I don't know. Next thing I kind of remember was we were sitting in southern Indiana at Melvin's home. And he called and they had pig races. And the gal called and hired us. And Melvin was all out in the yard just sitting, talking, you know, and he come back out off the phone. He says, well, he says, where were we headed? Some ungodly miles and miles and miles away. I said, we can't do that. We can't make that. Yeah, we can. I told her we'd do it. And we did. We did pig races for 3 or 4 years, I guess. Robinson's Racing Pigs. And no, it had to be Peoria, so it wasn't that far. Maybe it was something with the jumps, though. That, oh, yes, it was. Yes, I recall well, all of a sudden. We opened in Peoria, Illinois, and we had just little bleachers. Maybe we'd have maybe 200 or 300 people for a show. And they were actually like horse races. The pigs run around a horse or a track for an Oreo cookie. But what made ours good was Melvin's spiel, his lingo, his talk about Hammy Faye Bacon was one of them, and Pig Wee Herman, and Hulk Hogan. I still can't even say that right. I can't say Hulk Hogan. and then he'd just throw in all kinds of lingo, and the people just loved it. Well, anyway, from Peoria we went to the Wisconsin State Fair, where they had us on a whole half a block. And I counted, the front seats were 25 high, or 20 something. I figured anyway 2,500 people could fill the front seats, and the ones on the end, I figured there was probably about 1,500. Well, we're laughing because, you know, we just came from Peoria and we might have had 200 or 300 people per race. I says, man, these people think we're going to do something. And we're laughing. Miller Beer, and Saz's Barbecue, and a radio station was our sponsors there. And anyhow, we had to put on Miller special blankets I had to make for the pigs for the Miller Beer. We had Miller pennants and all kinds of Miller advertising. And so the next day or two, whenever it was opening day, we're sitting in the trailer because it's hot. It's August. And I'm doing something. And I look out and it's about 2 hours before the first race. And I'm look out the window. Melvin, there's people sitting out there. Oh, they're just resting. They're tired. The seats, you know, they're just resting. Pretty soon, so Melvin, there's more people sitting out there. Melvin, there's more people sitting out there. By the time it was race time, both sets of bleachers were full. There was people on top of our house trailer, on top of our pickup, on top of the pig trailer, on top of the pig pickup, or van we had, everywhere. Packed. Now, these pig races last about, and they're over, because they move. And we did 2 races. We had 2 sets of pigs. So we'd always do 2 races. And I'm like, Melvin, we can't, you're just, in 10 minutes, the whole thing's over. 15 tops. I mean, you got to really stretch it to make even 15 minutes. I said, these people have been sitting there for 2 hours. I said, we got to run another set of pigs. Oh, no, Carlotta will have I said, I don't care, she ain't here. So we run the first set again, so we do 3 sets every time. They loved it, just loved it. The famous thing about the Wisconsin State Fair is their cream puffs are the most popular item. Not those years, the pig races were the most popular items. Miller Beer was almost embarrassed to sponsor the pig races until we must have opened like a Thursday, until the Sunday paper came out. Every bigwig at Miller Beer was at that race because we didn't make the front page of the sports issue. We made the front page of the Milwaukee Sentinel in color. They were like, whoa, these are our pigs, And then they got so a lot of them would come out and they'd want to bet on them. Which one's going to win, BK? I don't know which one. Well, which one do you think's going to win this time? Well, all right. And I'd hate to say, half the time it'd look... it was a blast. It really was. And they loved it. They loved it. But everyone, over and over. Finally, we got enough security that they didn't get on our personal equipment, they contained them just to the seats, but every race, and we did 3 races every time, and stall in between. And the one race I remember, because Melvin is, well, he's not anymore, he's old, but he was a macho, and stout, and, man. Down in the small section, we had a lot of bikers. And you knew they were bikers. They liked their Harleys. And they liked their hogs, So, and what we also did, he would pick cheerleaders for 4 cheerleaders out of the audience. And so whichever one won, whichever pig won, they got a blue ribbon. The cheerleader did, if they picked the right pig. So Melvin, he would avoid these bikers. I said, Melvin, you got to pick one of them, because they were like, wanting to be a cheerleader so bad. And I said, you got to pick one of them. If they lose, they'll come kill me. He's like panicked. He ain't. I said, Melvin, you can make jokes. They like their hogs. They ought to know the hog, and blah, 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 blah. Oh, I had to, so the third race, he picked one of the girls. He figured it's more safe or something. I don't know. Thank you, Lord, she won. He was so happy. He was, but he's this macho man, he wasn't going to pick one of them. All right, so that was the pig race story, and we went on. I said, we can't do that. From there, which was Milwaukee, Wisconsin, we jumped to Cape Cod, Nantucket, and we had 2 days. We never stopped, never slept, never stopped. And Myrna was there. No, maybe that was the second year, because Myrna was there, and we just kept switching drivers.
What did you like more? Did you like that type of circuit, or would you rather be with a circus?
Well, I liked the pig races. We had lots of fun. They were boring because you did the most you do 6 races a day, different times. Most of the times it was 4 or 5. And they, like I said, they last 10 or 15 minutes, so there you are. Well, you can't go do anything because in 2 hours you got to be there. Well, if there's a big crowd, you may not get back, and that. But I love the circus. My son came this year, went to work for Culpeper Merriweather, and he does whips, cracking the old bull whips, and his dad and I used to do them. And one of the girls on the show holds the papers, the targets for him now, but I told him, I says, well, I'm going to hold them on opening day, Malray. I says, and we'll do the old act. We'll do the routine, because they just do a straight act. And so anyway, their help didn't get in for opening. And so I went over, we all went over, whoever, and I carried stakes, I carried side poles. Of course, that's about it for me anymore. And I wanted to drive a stake so bad. And I said, I'm going to drive one because I may never be able to. I couldn't even lift the sledgehammer. I said, haven't you got a smaller one? But I didn't. But I got to do that, and I helped where I could, you know. And I said, Mel Ray, they're going to die when they see the whip act. And Simone is the owner's fiance now, but she holds the papers usually for him and the targets. And I says, they're going to die when they see our act. And so we went in, and so Simone come back, and she says, well, BK, how do I announce you? And I says, well, you just say Mel Silverlake and family or whatever. You know, it don't matter. Don't worry about me. I'm just the second guy here, you know. Well, I couldn't remember the routine the first show that good, but we stumbled through it. And I'd glance over at Simone, and she'd just be cracking up, because we do more of a comedy type act. And she would just be cracking up, and Ralph and Susie and some of the other folks. And afterward, Ralph came, I didn't know you could do that kind of stuff. I'm like, Ralph, I've been in this business all my life. It's like, but until they see you do it, they don't figure, you know. But anyway, I enjoyed that. That was like, just a breath of fresh air, because I hadn't done anything for so long, you know, or been right on the circus.
And with your son.
Yeah, that makes it better. He's a pretty good kid. Lots of people like him too. He's been on a carnival the last 3 years, or 4 maybe. And they just beg for him to come, but they don't want to like up his pay or give him a little extra something, you know, here or there type good. But boy, they want him. He works hard.
Well, I think we're going to stop at this point, because the lighting is just keeps getting darker.
That's fine.
And next time we see you, we'll pick back up after
All right.
pig racing.